This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether your mom is into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried-and-true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now, everything at Movement is up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale. A watch is a gift that celebrates all the time you spent with Mom. And a Movement watch is even more than that. Movement uses industry-leading materials for their fresh, modern watch designs, from technically complex ceramics to vintage-inspired style, all for an incredible value your wrist and wallet will both love. And with one-size-fits-all convenience and fast free shipping and returns, it's a stress-free shopping experience. Save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with Movement. Get up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. As ever, the truth is in here. I'm your host today, Carl Sweeney, and this is our third day of our coverage of Episode 7, Season 11, Followers, and Sarah Blair's back with me. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
It's very much the morning.
Whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah, now if Sarah and I sounded a little bit distracted on the last couple of podcasts, we were, basically. We had technology problems, didn't we? We had microphone issues, Skype problems.
Yes. And children problems. Did you know we're also parents? That job never stops.
It's one of the unavoidable delights of parenthood, isn't it?
Exactly. The joys of podcasting as a parent.
Yeah, so we recorded those first two last night for us, and we've regrouped today because we're having a bit of trouble yesterday. But all it meant was, I think there were one or two things I was going to bring up in the other podcast that I forgot to, but I'll find a way, I think, Sarah, to crowbar them into this one somehow. But mainly, we're going to be talking about the writers and the director of this episode, who are, Kristen Cloak and Shannon Hamblin wrote it, and the great Glenn Morgan directed it. And I don't know about you. I mean, I'd just love to read. I mean, we'll start with the writers. I'd love to sit down and read the script for this one, just to see what it's like on the page. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really interested to know what that looks like written out, because without dialogue, it seems like it would almost be all directing, but you don't want to direct as a writer. You want to leave that on the page, so I'm really curious to see how that would play out on the page. I'd like to see that script for sure. That'd be interesting to look at.
Yeah, and one of the things I'd be interested in is whether there was any dialogue in the script that got even more pared down when they shot it, or whether it went the other way, whether they actually added a bit of dialogue, because there were bits and pieces, weren't there?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of the things I was a little bit surprised about going in is I knew it was a silent episode, or a near silent episode in advance. And like we said, we talked about episodes like other shows like Buffy. And I think in stuff like that, there's normally an in-story reason why the characters don't talk. But here, there's no real reason at the beginning why Mulder and Scully aren't talking to each other, is there? There's no reason why they can't talk. I was sort of wondering, because I knew it was about drones, I was wondering if it was going to be that they had to stay quiet so the drones couldn't detect them or something like that. But no, it was more like a stylistic choice, or a stylistic affectation, wasn't it, the way it played out?
Yeah, and I think it was interesting that it started off that way, because, I mean, it went with the whole theme of the episode, really. I mean, it's about technology, so they're using their technology instead of their voices. So I thought that was a really interesting commentary and a way to play out the episode, that they're not talking to each other because they've got these computers and all these robots and technology in front of them. So I thought that was a really interesting take on society as a whole, I guess. I mean, it's a cool way to play that out.
Yeah, well, let's talk a bit about these two women who wrote the episode then. And I think what's good is we're actually going to hear from both of them on the podcast itself, aren't we? Because I think Tony's already interviewed Kristen Cloak. I think that interview should be coming out tomorrow, as you're listening to this. And Sarah, I think you're, all being well, going to be talking to Shannon Hamblin, aren't you, in a few days?
That's right. Yep. So that's coming up. I'm really excited about that. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic to hear about their experience and like what exactly the process was and that kind of thing. I mean, let's just talk about Kristen Cloak quickly. Just for anyone who doesn't know, she's got kind of a long history with 1013 Productions. Of course, if you're a fan of Millennium, she played a recurring character in that series in Season 2, Lara Means, who was a character who added a lot to that show. I don't think you watched Millennium, did you, Sarah?
No, I was feeling a little bit bitter that Chris Carter had moved on to another show, or in addition to The X-Files. So Teenage Sari was quite quite a number, but it seems like a really cool show. I just never managed to actually sit down and consume it, as it were.
Yeah, well, the thing with her character was it was such a grim show that she added a little bit of like levity when she turned up in the second season, which is when like Glenn Morgan and James Wong were like running the show. So yeah, she added a lot to that, I thought. But then she also appears in The X-Files in Season 4. In the episode The Field Where I Died, she plays the character of Melissa. It's kind of multiple characters because it's all about past lives and that kind of thing. And that's an interesting episode. It's one I've always kind of liked, but I think it's the worst one of the 4 episodes Morgan and Wong did that season, which was also including Home, Never Again, and Musings of a Cigarette Smoking Man. But I don't know if you remember, Sarah, like at the time, I think like the shippers, like generally speaking, really didn't like that episode. I don't know what your thoughts were on it, The Field Where I Died.
That's one that has grown on me over time. I think I was with the shippers and that, but I mean, I got that it was, you know, past lives and all that, so I didn't really hold it against anyone that they would be in love in a past life. I mean, that's not something you can really control, I guess. But I mean, it is what it is. But I thought that she did an amazing job acting in that episode. I always admired her work. So, and I liked the idea of that episode a lot. And I think it brought out a lot of Mulder angst, which I was always a fan of. So, yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great part for her as well. And she's been giving some interviews in addition to like she'll be coming on the podcast and so on. And on sci-fi.com, her interview there, she says, you know, if you're upsetting the shippers, it's bad. Believe me, I've been there. It's not good. So
poor girl.
Yeah. I would hope that you know, that has dispersed over time. That's gone away.
I wonder if the shipper moments in this episode were a response to her trying to make up for her other previous indiscretions.
Yeah, like quarter of a century later.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, so she's married to Glenn Morgan. And she's been in a lot of his like series and films, and she was one of the lead actors on Space Above and Beyond back in the 90s. So yeah, she's got a long history of 1013 or 1013, you know, related productions, I guess. So I mean, fantastic that someone like that should get a chance to write an episode, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really cool that, you know, that they're married and they got to pair up like that. That's always cool when you get to work with, you've got creative spouses and you can work together. So that's really cool that she got to write and he got to direct. And it's especially neat that, you know, she probably knows him really well, obviously, because they're married. But
you would hope so.
Yeah, you would hope so. But yeah, so I think it's really neat that they probably, you know, were able to collaborate on that and to get that done, and share ideas as it was probably being written. And it's kind of a nice idea, I think.
Yeah, no, it makes you wonder as well, like, how harmonious was it, or like, were there any disagreements?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
that kind of thing. That's where my mind goes, anyway. But, yeah. So the other writer, Shannon Hamblin, she's someone who's been a writer's assistant on the series previously, and she's talked in interviews about like the impetus for this episode. She said like it was always no dialogue. You know, conceptually, I think that's what Glenn was looking to do: tell the story without it. And Kristen Cloak said, when we did Space Above and Beyond, they'd done an episode that had virtually no dialogue. It was one of the first shows to do it. Glenn always wanted to do it again. He was excited as a director to tell a story visually. I think it created a great show, especially for me. I'm kind of a wordy person, so it was a good challenge. So yeah, that Space Above and Beyond episode, that was like easily the best episode of that series, I thought. I don't know if you ever saw that back in the day.
No, I never did. Mm-mm.
No, it was one of these kind of one-season wonders, I think, where I felt it was kind of picking up a bit of steam in the second half of the season, and then before you know it, it's kind of cancelled, isn't it? And there was no, it wasn't coming back.
That's sad when that happens.
Yeah, but I mean, TV is littered with such examples, isn't it, sadly? But yeah, no, so it had a very experimental streak as well, that series, and yeah, that episode was called Who Monitors the Birds? It's well worth checking out if anyone is interested. So yeah, it was just fascinating, I thought, to hear that sort of the concept came, the concept of no dialogue sort of seems to have come first, essentially, and they sort of constructed the rest of it around that, is what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting to come up with an idea like that and then try to figure out what kind of plot and structure you want to have around that. I think that would be an interesting challenge. For sure, yeah, to do that. I don't know. I think, like she said, she's really wordy, so that was a challenge. I am too, so I can definitely understand that challenge.
Yeah, and it would have been a challenge, wouldn't it, for the actors as well? But like they say, Kristen says in this interview, they were happy about it, Duchovny and Anderson. They didn't have to memorize any lines, So I thought, like, this series is normally, it's so, like, ornate, isn't it? And, like, some of the Chris Carter dialogue, for example, is, like, the complete opposite of, like, pared down.
Yeah.
And it becomes quite florid, doesn't it? So, yeah, I'd love to know what they felt when they sort of picked up the script or when they first heard the concept. I'd imagine they'd have been, like, really relishing the challenge, from what we know about them.
Yeah, and I want to know, like, how many pages was the script? Because typically with dialogue and everything, you do about a page per minute. So I'm really curious to know if it was just an outline or all that. But I guess we're going to find out soon enough with our interviews.
Yeah, and
Did you know that most vitamin D3 supplements come from sheep's wool? Ew, seriously. They squeeze the grease out of the wool and process it with chemicals, and then you eat it. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I got rid of products I didn't want anywhere near my body. I found that many multivitamins contain high amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and even lacked some of the nutrients we actually needed. So what did I do? At 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. Ritual's products are made traceable, meaning we share the science and sourcing for every single ingredient. For example, our vegan vitamin D3 comes from sustainably harvested lichen in Nottingham, England, not sheep. We trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. See for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/podcast.
Talk a bit about like the sound as well. Like Shannon says about the song Teach Your Children. She says, I think it also adds to that isolated feeling that the obsession with technology and your cell phone and all that stuff gives you. You feel like you are engaged all the time, but maybe you're even more alienated by not really engaging. So the idea of like alienation is what I was thinking about, when I saw the episode. It really is true, isn't it? And it's quite startling when you stop to think about it. If we could like rewind back like 10 years or even a bit further, or even just 5 years, our lives would be so much different than they are now with all these gadgets and so on.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I would have been so much more calm and collected if I had known that the X-Files would be available to watch on my phone anywhere I want. Like, I was madly and obsessively recording every episode on my little VCR and cutting out the commercials and all of that, because I didn't know if I was going to ever get to see it again. So, you know, that would have made my life a lot better 20 years ago. I probably would not have suffered so much OCD.
I don't know, I feel like my life is worse in some ways. Like, it was such a simple time. I mean, I'm only 31. I don't want to sound like too much of an old man, like reminiscing. But like when I was a kid, it was just, you know, you just play outside the all day. You know, I feel quite wistful right now. So
I know, Carl. It's okay. Yeah, like I know what you mean though, because it was nice. Like I did the same. We'd just go and play outside, and no cell phones and all that. So I think in some ways it's made it easier, but I think in other ways it's definitely made me more needy, I guess, because now that I feel like because I can be in constant contact with people, I need to be in constant contact with people. I don't know. It's a weird feeling, but I was just texting. It's funny you said that, because I was just texting my friend from high school the other day, and I was like, okay, you call the theater and see what's playing tonight. Instead of, like, now you can just go on the internet and check really quick, and it takes 2 seconds. And before, you know, somebody else was on the line listening to the movies listings at the theater, you had to wait for the busy signal. So, you know, it's definitely a different lifestyle for sure.
Definitely. I think what I've noticed, I think my memory's getting worse, and I think it's because, like, information is just so on tap now, isn't it? I mean, within 5 seconds I can find out who was in a particular film or an episode, or, you know, or whatever it might be, who won a championship in sport in whatever year. I can just
Yay.
Yeah, well, you used to have to go to the library and look in an encyclopedia or something, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now it's just immediately available. So,
And you have to think, is it worth it?
all right. Well, Kristen Cloak and Shannon Hamblin have given a few interviews. I don't want to go too much more into it because we're going to be hearing from them on the podcast. So maybe we should talk a bit about Glenn Morgan then, because, I mean, he had a very important job here, didn't he? Because the direction of this was so crucial to carrying off, like, the whole thing. And I thought he did very well, honestly. And I really liked some of the little touches, you know, like some of the CCTV shots from inside the restaurant in the opening few scenes, you know. Mm-hmm. It just really added to, like, the ambience and, like, the atmosphere of the piece, I thought. And stuff like that. And there were some other examples of that kind of thing, like, later on, weren't there? So, yeah, thumbs up from me to him, I guess.
I'm with you on that. I really liked the dark mood and the stark atmosphere of the restaurant in the beginning, and how everything, even Scully's house, was so modern, and all the clean lines and all that made it feel very, I don't know the word I'm looking for, like technology, and like you're in the Matrix, I guess. That postmodern feel is kind of retro, but at the same time timeless in a way, because it's futuristic yet, you know, from the past. So I think that was all really good on his part, that he had his crew set everything up like that, and all the set direction was really great. So yeah, I think the whole episode really was cohesive and fit the theme really well.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find any interviews he's given. I don't think he's given any interviews about this episode yet. But one of the things, like, I'd be interested in knowing is, like, how many takes did they do with the actors, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, did they do, like, a whole bunch of them and get them to do it, like, you know, do it a bit more broad, do it less broad? And did they kind of, was it trial and error in that way? Or did he go in knowing exactly what he wanted? I'd love to know that.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, how much of it was just, okay, this is the point of the scene, go. Do what you want to do, you know? That would be, because, I mean, Duchovny and Anderson knew each other so well, and they've done this for so long that they are so comfortable in their roles that I feel like, you know, and they've worked with Morgan so much that I feel like everyone would be comfortable enough to just go at it, which I think is kind of cool in a way, because that they, you know, they all are such a solid crew, and everyone is so on board with everything, like they're just a family, and it seems like that would have been a really cool set to be on, just to experience that creative process and how different it is compared to the rest of the show and typical television filming. So
yeah, and like it seems like from what we can gather that he's very open to like the actors doing a bit of ad-libbing, you know, so it'd be good to know exactly which bits, like for example Duchovny contributed, because I've seen it suggested that the line about when Mulder says like, why is your house so much nicer than mine, yeah, apparently that was something he ad-libbed, and actually a lot of fans have kind of been criticising that line because it sort of seems to suggest that Mulder had never been to her house before, is how people are taking it. But I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't really take it that way. But, I mean, if it's a new house, it would make sense if he hadn't been there yet. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I feel like even on the show, the original series, they hung out at Mulder's place a lot more than her place. Like, Mulder would only kind of come there. So, yeah, I don't know. That didn't really bother me, yeah.
No, it didn't bother me at all until I like logged on and I saw people talking about it. But, alright, so yeah, I'm really excited to hear these interviews that are coming up. And, well, both of them really, yours and Tony's. Let's talk a little bit, just quickly before we go, about like what you're hoping for from the rest of the season, Sarah. Because, I mean, we're really getting down to the crunch now, aren't we? 3 episodes to go. Lots riding on it. I mean, what are you hoping to see?
More Skinner, obviously. Yeah, that's what I just always want, more Skinner. I know that's cheap and shallow, but...
Did you notice on Scully's fridge it said something about...
I did, yeah.
Skinner's birthday's coming up, yeah.
Yep, yeah, so if I can get more Skinner, and that's about it, really. Yeah, I just need more Skinner, as much as I can get.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm pretty confident about these next 2 episodes, but I think the final episode is the one where I'm not sure about how that one's going to come out, and I've got everything crossed, basically, that Chris Carter delivers the goods on that one, because I think that if the season ends on a high note and everybody's kind of, well, not everybody, because that'll never happen, but if a lot of people are satisfied with the last episode, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? But I can see it going in another direction, to be honest.
I know. I'm nervous about the last episode, but I just really am keeping everything crossed, like you said. I just don't want another cliffhanger. That's one of the things that I had hoped after season 9 and after season 10. I just really wanted the show to go out on a high note. And neither one of those seasons delivered. And since this season is so good, and I'm enjoying it so much, I just want this pace and this feeling to continue throughout the last 3 episodes, and no cliffhanger, and just let's have it go out with a bang, a good bang, not a cliffhanger bang. No cliffhanger.
So you're saying you don't want a cliffhanger, is that right?
Yes, that would be accurate. And more Skinner. Yeah.
And more Skinner. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see. I'm pretty sure we'll get a bit more Skinner anyway. So the cliffhanger will have to...
No cliffhangers with Skinner, please.
All right, Sarah. So we'll leave it there. So yeah, we'll be hearing from you in a few days, won't we? And we'll be hearing next from Tony talking to Kristen Cloak, which is our next podcast. And then I think after that, I'll be back with this week's mailbag episode. So there's lots to look forward to Xcast-wise over the next few days.
Excellent. Can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. But before we go, we've got one last bit of business, which is we've got a new patron, Sarah. she is Kelsey L. Mayer. So I just wanted to say a big, big thank you to Kelsey for choosing to support the podcast. We love our patrons, don't we, Sarah? And you did a really good roundtable, I thought, with a few of them just recently, didn't you?
It was fun, and they were so good. Like, they were not... I mean, I know it's scary the first time you get on the podcast, because I was nervous the first few times I did a roundtable, but they were just all so brilliant and wonderful, and it was great. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really, really nice to hear from everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to Roundtable 2, Patron Roundtable 2, whenever that comes. So, yeah, if anyone else would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/thexcast, and all the information is there. If you're in two minds about signing up, you can have a look there. In the meantime, find us on Twitter at the X_cast, or on Facebook, and type in Xcast, you'll find X-Files Basement, which is our Xcast podcast fan group. But until next time, everyone, trust no one.